Hello and welcome to the Academy of the Magical Art. This is Iana Rain, and I am here today to kind of share and talk a little bit about being an intuitive and an empath and being gifted in those areas. And maybe this will help some of you who are going through an awakening or have experienced any of these things. I'm going to try really hard to cover on what I feel is important, and I know that I have been prompted by the universe to go ahead and put this out there. You are not alone, and everybody comes through their awakening in their own way, and gifts are a blessing and can also be a curse at some time. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and try not to jump around a whole lot. This is such a vast subject, and I would like to share as much as I possibly can without boring you. So I will go ahead and start with, I was born this way, and when my mother was in labor with me, I was early. I was 3 weeks early, and I was the first born on my paternal side out of like 25 grandchildren. And my grandmother is on the paternal side of full Irish, 100%. She was born and raised in Ireland, and she is extremely gifted, but is in complete denial, of course. The religious background of that family is considered taboo. To be speaking of this is considered witchcraft, and it's considered dark. My maternal side is extremely gifted as well. They are prophets and seers, not so much embracing and practicing, but they're not ignoring their abilities. This has been something that has awakened with my abilities when I've embraced them. So they don't necessarily practice, but they are not ignoring them. So going back to my birth, my mother had gone into labor with me, and I was early. When I had come out, she had actually given birth to me naturally. The doctors were very concerned and actually were like, stop, stop, stop. And what had happened was my umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck 2.5 times. And they did not want her to push anymore because it would have killed me, because it would have strangled me. There was no way to stop that from happening. So as I was starting to come out, what had happened was they realized that I was actually sucking my thumb. So because I was sucking my thumb, my arm was also wrapped in the cord. And so it prevented the cord from actually strangling me. And so from a very young age, I had the divine on my side. So that was a really cool story. I know that for 3 days, I did not have a name. And my parents were going back and forth about this. And I find that that is really quite interesting because of what the power of 3 holds. And 3 is talking about the Trinity. It's also talking about like the triple goddess. If you're thinking about the Mother Maiden and the Crone, with the Trinity, it's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so I feel like there was some divineness happening in that as well. So what they finally, had decided on, it correlates and resonates very well. I can remember at a very young age being extremely confused because I was very connected to nature, and I knew things, and I could see vibrations around trees and color on people and auras, and at the time I didn't know what that was. I remember standing in the middle of fields, and even as I'm speaking this to you, my body is covered in goosebumps, and I can remember so vividly. I can remember standing in fields and looking up and just feeling all of the energy that I could pick up, and just knowing that there's something greater out there, and what is being presented at face value just wasn't the truth, and really conflicted as a very small child because what was being taught was not truth. And I can remember being able to see people, like really see them, and I could see that, oh wow, that person's kind of looks like an elf, and I feel like they are from Middle Earth. And I didn't even know what Middle Earth was at the time, but I knew, looking at certain people, they were star people and they had great energy about them. And then some people, not so much. And I knew that I could trust this color on somebody, and people who were this color, I couldn't necessarily trust. And all of this stuff was coming at me pretty strong as a little kid. I remember very much feeling like I wish I could be someplace else because this just doesn't feel homey to me. I just don't feel and resonate here. That took me into my teenage years, and I really had a strong awakening, I want to say, in my teenage years. And my eyes are one thing that people are very drawn to for some reason. And I can remember literally having people look me in the eye, and all of a sudden I was overwhelmed with all kinds of emotion and just feeling incredibly overwhelmed and thinking that something had to really be wrong with me. And this was after, as a child, riding in a car with my mom, I'd be able to look out the window and be like, whoa, there was a car accident there, and I can still see people standing by the road. And my mom would be like, there's no cars there, there's nothing there. But I was seeing this. I could see that somebody had passed and there was this kind of an accident and this is what happened, and I would talk about it. My mom's like, oh, you have such an incredible imagination. I can remember, seeing things, not so pretty things, coming through walls. I can remember all of these very profound happenings in my younger years. And as a teenager, this has all kind of come to head, and I really was struggling. My family thought that I was evil because of the things I was seeing, that the devil had its hold on me. And, there were really a lot of situations where I felt so misunderstood, and no matter how many times I would try to express what I was seeing, and hey mom, how come, when we ride past the cemetery, I see a lady and this is what she's wearing, and why is she dressed like that? And my mom looks at me and she's like, there's no lady. I'm like, but there's a lady, like I can see this lady. And I learned as a teenager to stop talking about this stuff because it was very disturbing for my family, and I was not getting anywhere, and I really shut down. My eyes were focused for people, and I looked down a lot and wouldn't make eye contact. I spent a lot of time in my bedroom by myself. And what had happened, and now as an adult and completely awake, I realized that during this time, I was sent a spirit to help me. I did not understand that that's what was happening at the time. He would come in, his name was Drew, he was very tall, very slender, very, very much connected to me, and it kind of scared me. He came in, he taught me a lot. He taught me how to understand when spirit was coming through, and what they were, and how to decipher and use discernment. And I didn't even understand that this was happening when it was happening. I may have been 16, 17 years old. And so I had this whole nother world that I was a part of that couldn't share with anybody because nobody understood. Later, I found out that I was pretty much empathic, and I also have the ability of sight and prophecy and looking into past lives, and I can touch things and know where they've been, and I can communicate with animals and trees and plants, and these abilities have been with me my entire life. Very overwhelming at times, very blessed at others. I can remember knowing when family is going to pass. Christmas at my house was never great because I always knew. No matter how hard people would try to surprise, I could see, I knew. And so, that's kind of funny. I got accused a lot of peeking and, cheating and whatnot, but really it wasn't that. It was my sight that was creating that. I do feel very much that my life had to be the way that it was, and I had to be treated kind of like I was the black sheep because it helped me grow. I knew that I didn't belong here. I knew that somewhere deep down inside, there was something very different about who I was. I wasn't sure what that meant, and I did go through times where I felt angry and hurt because of this. I felt, why? Why do I have to be so different? Why do people look at me differently? What is it so different about me that people are afraid of? Why are people afraid of who I am? And it taught me so much, and it taught me to be secure no matter what. And it taught me that I am perfect the way that I am because I was made this way with intention. And I've met so many people that have shared with me, oh my goodness, you are so helpful. What you do is so important. And as an adult now, I realize that all of those things had to happen to me for me to be able to step into what it is that my purpose is. And they are gifts. They have been gifted. And I feel like if you don't honor them in the right way, they can be taken away as well. I know I'm trying really hard to stay focused. There's so much I want to share with you. I also have had dreaming where, as a teenager, I've had dreams about past lives. I've had dreams about people coming into my life. I knew my first husband, the father to my girls, who are also gifted. I dreamt about him when I was 12 years old, and every time I dreamt about him, he was saving me in one way or another. And it was from water and drowning, which is ironic because when I was 6 years old in this lifetime, not only was I rescued at birth from being terminated, but also at 6 years old, I drowned. I literally drowned, and it was very peaceful. And I remember seeing all these little bubbles in the sunlight, and I could hear people playing. It was in a pool at my aunt's house in Detroit. And I was laying on the bottom of the pool, and I could see all these little bubbles, and it was very enchanting and kind of peaceful. But literally, that was like the last air out of my lungs, and didn't realize that that's what was happening to me. So the next thing I know, I am being thrown on the ground, and I looked up, and I'll never forget this gentleman. He was very tall, slender, he had red freckles and bright orange hair, and he was literally pumping water out of me. I was actually not okay. And as soon as I opened my eyes, I sat up and I wanted to get back in the water. So that's just a little bit about me as a person. But throughout my whole life, there's been multiple times where the divine has stepped in to save me. Also, with that being said, I have the strangest things happen to me physically. My spiritual body is so out there and on so many levels at so many times that I'm able to read all these different levels and connect with them, that I always say I'm getting very much more comfortable with the harmony between my soul and my body. But it's taken me years to have harmony with the both of them, because my soul knows that it doesn't belong in this human body, and my body is like, what is happening? And so there has to be that harmony that I've had to learn to embrace and understand. And I do know a lot of spiritual people. I do a lot of intuition classes. I try to teach and open doors for people and help them understand their self gifts. And I have really come to find that in my teachings and my journeys and my lessons of my own, that people who are extremely gifted and have very thin veils have a tendency to have really strange physical ailments, to the point where it's almost disabling to some extent. And I feel like there's purpose for that as well. Pain is very grounding, actually, in some ways. So with that being said, I'm trying to go back a little bit to some of the other things I think are important and just kind of talking through. I feel like one of the most important things that I have learned about my abilities and being an intuitive of sorts, or a reader, or however you want to. I'm not really fond of the word psychic because there's a definite weird vibration that goes with that, and it's very, woohoo, and people are very turned off by it. It is just, I don't know, I'm not fond of it, I guess. The energy just feels yucky to me. So I would rather like intuitive or a seer, or I have a knowing, I guess you would say. But what I think is important to understand when going through this and through an awakening is that embracing who you are is very important. Understanding that we all have great purpose and we are all capable of these beautiful, amazing things. Some of us are just going to have it more naturally. My husband is very supportive of me and my abilities, and I think it's important to have somebody who can see who you are, and I think it's important for us to stay humble. You see often so many people in spiritual communities that get extremely out of hand because their ego is going crazy, and yeah, it's really easy to let that happen. But I think if you stay aligned with your heart and you walk in true notion, you will be able to understand that it is a gift, and gifts are a blessing. It doesn't always feel that way. I can tell you that there are times that I see things that I really wish that I could not see. I know that I really wish that I didn't know, but there's purpose for it. You have to understand that when those things happen, there's something you need to act on. There's something that somebody needs help with. And you have to step forward, and you have to understand that there is a humbleness because it isn't me. It's not me. I am the vessel. These gifts come from beyond what we know. And being able to facilitate and understand and see them is such an honor. And I think if you stay aligned with that and that true notion and you're speaking from your heart, I feel like you are going to be so blessed, and the abundance of what your gift is going to be fully, truly known. And I really am speaking from my heart with this. All of the frustration and all of the being treated like I was evil and all of the things that have come about in my life have been totally worth where I'm sitting right now. And I am currently 40 years old, and when I was 30, after going through the rough teenage years and basically living in my bedroom and away from people, I was very ill. And I had an awakening that was, okay, let me see what it is I need to see to help myself. Let me understand and to truly step into where I'm at. And it just slowly started coming, and I really educated myself for years on what it is that I felt was my next step. I let the universe lay it out for me. Now I'm practicing as best I can for what I need. And I hope that in some ways this is helping you. I would feel very open to any questions. There is so many things that I could share and talk to you about that I just don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. I just was prompted to put this out here. I hope that the information that I have given is information that is helpful and is leading to open doors and helping maybe some comfort in some ways. And I know that I am not the only one. There are so many of us, and I feel like if we stick together, we are in an awakening right now. It is so important for us to step into our abilities. It is so important to let the divine work through us. It is so very important for us to facilitate the healing of our earth and the healing for each other, and that one consciousness that we have. We all have the same light inside of every single one of us. We need to start loving and helping and understanding. Oh my goodness, it is so important. And I am feeling very much that this is resonating with my heart right now. I really hope that if you're listening to this, this touches you in some way. I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or want any further information on anything that I can try to help you with. I have so much that I can share. And if I don't know, maybe I can point you in the right direction to somebody that would know. I am currently doing like intuitive readings. I teach different classes. I have 4 children. They are all gifted. All of them are. I am going to actually put a video up on raising gifted children. It is definitely a challenge. They are currently, one is going to be 21. I have a 19-year-old, I have a 16-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And only one boy out of that. They are all different. They're all gifted in their own ways. It is an incredibly crazy household because my husband is also gifted. So you can imagine when energy gets thrown around, the stuff that goes on. It's quite incredible. We have company over sometimes and they're like, whoa, and we don't even realize it anymore because we live in this environment. So it's kind of crazy for the person who doesn't get it and is not in tune. It can be a little overwhelming, but beautiful in its own way. So if there's anything more I can do for you, I will be talking some more about some other situations and things later. I really want to thank you for this opportunity for sharing a little bit about myself, and it's been a blessing. And I hope that you are able to gain something from this. Much love to you. Thank you for joining us. And this is Iana Rain. Namaste.